want to do is talk about Luke. Now, you had great opportunities in education. You could have chosen anything. You worked with the Obama administration. I mean, you had thousands of opportunities, and then the city was sexy for you.
Yeah. Look, I've been very lucky in the work that I've been able to do. I, had the chance to serve in the Obama administration, which was just, an extraordinary collection of people who love our country and wanted to move it forward and wanted to do good work. And it's kind of heartbreaking to see what's happening in Washington now when you think about the incredible team that was down there during the Obama years. But I feel really lucky to have been a part of that administration. And I was at the Treasury Department right after the financial crisis. So a lot of the work we were doing was about trying to make sure that that kind of financial crisis didn't happen again and make sure that families were protected. A lot of the work I did in that first year was helping to get the law passed that set up the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to try to crack down on those financial abuses, like outrageous payday lending rates, or lenders that were taking advantage of veterans or families in need. And Donald Trump has just hollowed all of that out and tried to tear it down, but it's really important. So I hope that we can get back there again and do that work. But I was really lucky to be part of that Obama administration, and then also felt really lucky to be part of the governor's office in the state, because there I got to do a lot of work that I was really passionate about. We got to help put in place some common sense gun laws and so set a model that I hope our country will someday follow. We've got to work to really make Connecticut a leader in criminal justice reform and push for the second chance society laws. Worked hard to try to end veterans homelessness, which I hope now becomes a model for the work we can do on homelessness in general. And we're working really hard right now on trying to combat homelessness for kids in our community. And then, I also served in the military and served over in...
Let's talk about that. Yeah. I think we don't talk enough about that. My husband, obviously, 32 years. Yeah, there's another 2 that you don't count in there, right? And he retired. And one of the things when I first met you that I thought, oh, wait a minute. This is the whole package. This is a guy who understands what it is to be in danger and what it is to protect others and what it is to feel that you might be part of something or you might not. Your father?
Yeah, I got 3 little kids.
Yeah.
My wife was pregnant with our second while I was over in Afghanistan. So families serve too. When I was over in Afghanistan, we had our first little girl. She was about 14 months old when I left. And my wife had just gotten pregnant with our second when I left, so almost all the pregnancy I was gone, and I actually got back about 48 hours before our son was born.
Did you?
Yeah, made it back just in time. But she carried our family through that whole time, and I think it's important to recognize that it's families that serve, not just individuals, not just the ones in uniform. It's maybe families more than anybody else.
I don't think anybody would agree more than my husband, although I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah.
He gives me too much credit. Now, Mayor, you are a father, so you're looking at the city, you're looking at gun control or lack of, you're looking at our children being homeless, they're being hungry, but there is a lot of things that you have done that, in my opinion, you're not explosive about telling everybody. Puerto Rico's hurricane, we had 2, Irma.
Yeah.
Then we had Maria, and I personally want to thank you because there's not one phone call I have not placed to your office that's not been answered, not one.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for that. And I don't know if you remember this, you said, can I go to the kitchen, is there anything I can do? And I said, no. And you just looked at me like, what? I'm like, no, please don't come to the kitchen, I'm in charge of the kitchen. You're like, okay, no problem. But the fact that you were even willing to do that in the kitchen and ensuring that we were heard, you saw an influx of people coming into your city. Never met you, don't know what your politics are, they have no idea who Luke Bronin is. We see you a lot out in the community. You can play some mean maracas, I saw that, in the parrandas. What do you want people to know who just arrived here that I work so closely with and are part now of your community?
Not just for the families who've been displaced by Puerto Rico, but for so many of our residents here in Hartford. because we had so many families whose loved ones were affected by that hurricane and who were worried about their loved ones in Puerto
Myself
Rico,
included.
and yourself included. You know, families who couldn't reach their loved ones in Puerto Rico for
You had
days or
staff, too.
weeks. I had staff who were in that same position of not being able to reach their loved ones. But I think that's all the more reason why that it was important for us as a community to come together and show that when we talk about being a welcoming city, it's not just words, that we really mean it. And of course, that's all the more important now too, when you've got, you know, a president and you know, some folks down in Washington who spend a lot of time trying to divide us and to demean people and dehumanize. And so I think there was both the really important work of supporting those individuals and families and kids who were coming to a new place that they needed to embrace them and welcome and support. But there's also sending that message about what we are as a city. You know, what's our identity? What are our values? And that's why I think the work that you did and the work that so many other residents did is so important. And we tried to support from City Hall, but the truth is that the real work was done by the community. It was done by you. It was done by countless other volunteers. You know, it was done by nonprofit organizations and others.
Many.
And I think, you know, at a moment like that, you saw the real strength of our city. You saw its values. You saw our values as a city on display, and you saw our community come together and try to support. Now, the other thing, it's not like that challenge is behind us. We still have, you know, hundreds of families who are still struggling with, you know, the uncertainty of you know, where are they going to live next month? You know, what job are they going to be able to do? And it's not just those families that recently came from Puerto Rico who are in that situation. We have many, many families and many, many residents who face tremendous uncertainty in their lives. And, you know, we try as a city to be able to do as much as we can, but there's no question there are so many needs unmet.
Now, you are married to a wonderful, intelligent, and if I must say so, too, beautiful. Oh, they're screaming over
How you
there.
doing?
Hey, I'm Bronin.
I love you too.
Look at that. You're getting all the love.
Thank you.
You will. You hear that? You will. So, you are married. You've been to the military. You've worked in the Obama administration. You've had great opportunities. And you have a smart wife, and you say, I want to come to the city of Hartford. Now, let's not deny the truth. You're a white boy, right? And this is the multicultural city.
That's what we love about it. You know?
There is so much richness here.
Right.
What is the most attractive thing? Forget that you're the mayor.
Sure. No,
the
I mean,
man with the wife making
Well,
the
look,
decision.
I am lucky to be married to a beautiful woman who is much smarter than me, and she's actually the one that brought us to Hartford. You know, she teaches over at UConn Law School, and it was her job that brought us to Hartford back in 2006. We were living down in New Haven before that, and her job brought us up here, but we fell in love with Hartford from the start, and a big part of that is that it is such a beautifully diverse community. You know, my wife is Mexican-American, she's Latina, she's from Texas. It's not easy to get a Texan to stay in Connecticut, but we both fell in love with Hartford because it's a city with so much cultural richness, with so much diversity, and we believe then, and I believe deeply now, with so much potential to be a really great small city. And you know, so a lot of people thought I was crazy when I decided to run for mayor in 2015. My wife probably thought I was a little crazy too, but she supported it because she loves the city too, and she believes in the city too.
How was that conversation?
Well, you know, Sarah had already been very involved in the city. She was, you know, chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. She had served on a number of commissions in the city, so she was already very involved in the life of the city. And you know, it wasn't hard to convince her. We both cared about the future of the city, and we chose to make our home here and raise our kids here because we love the city. And so, you know, I think we both saw at that time a city that was missing some big opportunities and maybe making some big mistakes, and we wanted to make sure that we were part of getting our city on a path to strength.
When you look at the city now and all the work that you've been able to do, as you sit there as mayor and walk the streets, and I hear people say, I love you, mayor, What is the most inspiring thing for you right now? I mean, what's the hunger inside that says I got to run again? I mean, because it's not an easy job. Let's be honest. It's not an easy job.
This may be the hardest, certainly the hardest job I've ever had, and it may be the hardest job that I ever will have. But it's a great job because you really do get to move the city forward. And when I look back at where we started, when I took office, this city really was in crisis. I mean, we were on the edge of bankruptcy, and if we had gone that direction, there were really only two paths available to us, it seemed. One was bankruptcy, which would have been a really difficult road for our city and for a lot of residents. The other is to do what cities like Detroit did, which was just abandon the city altogether and have places where streetlights never get fixed, and police just don't respond to calls, or fire don't respond to calls, where services were completely eliminated, not just reduced but eliminated. And we didn't want that to be the future for our city. So we fought really hard to make some really difficult decisions, but also to build partnerships that would make it possible to have a path other than bankruptcy. And I'm proud that in this relatively short period of time, we were able to go from real budget crisis, I mean, really a city that was basically in bankruptcy, to a place of stability. But the hunger inside of me now is to take that moment of stability and move us towards strength. Because our goal can't just be to balance budgets. Our goal has to be to lift our city up and move our city forward. And I think that we have so much more work to do, but we have a path and we have a plan, and we're starting to make some progress. And I hope to be able to continue that work. The work of being a mayor, it's never done. You're never done building a city, growing a city. It's like a baton race. You carry it as far as you can or as far as you need to, and then you pass it on. I hope to be able to carry a little further, because I think we've moved from crisis to stability, and now's the chance to really keep doing that work and hopefully get us on a path for the long term. And that's what I want. And my vision from day one, which I said to my staff and I said to our team in City Hall, was our goal needs to be for Hartford to be, our goal has to be for Hartford to be the vibrant and strong center of this region of almost 1.5 million people, and it has to be a city where everybody in every neighborhood feels like they've got a share in Hartford's rise. And we've been working hard to try to do both of those things. It's a hard thing to do. We have a lot of work left to do, but I think we're starting to make some progress.
So I don't live in Hartford. I live in Bristol.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to buy a house in those days. Not on my income. We all know what I do for a living, right? But the city has become a pumping heart for many. The taxes are still too high, which I think you've been talking about over and over again. How do we keep people in the city and not moving out? How do we make affordable housing not a poverty zone?
That's right.
Because my biggest concern is that we're giving little to no hope sometimes.
Right.
And you and I had a conversation off camera where I called you and I said, okay, I'm doing all this stuff. And you said, okay, how can we help? And we talked about collaboration. So one of the things that you and I have in common, if I may, is that I really believe in collaboration.
Yeah.
I really believe in not reinventing the wheel if it's not necessary. And the partnerships, but that's a talent. So Mayor, collaborations, you've done a really good job at doing that. That's not an easy job. That's what I do for a living. So,
you do it very well.
Well, sometimes I don't have as much luck as I wish. We have been able to build that. You have said, please talk to my staff. You answer my phone calls. I don't toot anybody's horn. As a matter of fact, I don't live in Bristol, but I work a lot in the city. How do you see these collaborations moving forward? You've done a lot of work. We don't want to interrupt that.
Right. Like you can't move a city forward working alone. And we've worked really hard to build partnerships of all kinds. That's partnership with our residents, partnerships with our neighborhood revitalization zones, partnerships with our nonprofits. It's also building partnerships with the state and with our big companies and with our unions. And when we faced that budget crisis, which really it was about whether the city was going to survive. I mean, everything was at stake for our city at that time, and we did a lot of work to. For those of us who are not in your world and don't understand math as others do, meaning me, what did that mean for us? At the time, there are a lot of reasons that Hartford has budget challenges. You know, half our property is non-taxable, and we've got, you know, about as much taxable property as small suburbs around us, the much wealthier suburbs around us. What that meant is that we had a city that was very close to not being able to pay our bills. And what does that mean when a city can't pay our bills? It means that, you know, you can't provide for public safety. It means you can't clean, you can't pick up trash. It means you can't respond to fires. It means life or death services disappear. It means that, you know, it's not just a question.
God bless you.
God bless you too.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
God bless.
God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You know, when there's not much we do as a city that isn't vital to our residents, whether that's, you know, our firefighters or our police or our DPW workers who are, you know, picking up trash and you know, taking care of our parks. All of that is so
Which
vital.
would become a health
And
issue
all
if we
of
didn't
that,
have those brothers and
absolutely,
sisters.
and our health department. You know, all of those services. We're not lucky enough to have a lot of nice-to-haves. Most of what we do are must-haves. They're things that are vital to the health and survival of the city. And the budget crisis that we faced threatened all of that. You know, it put us in a position where, you know, a year or two down the road, we wouldn't have been able to provide for any of that. And that's why we had a really serious discussion of bankruptcy. But more importantly, it's why we worked so hard to build the partnerships that would give us a different path. And you remember, I went out and did those town halls of all the towns around us saying, you can't be a suburb of nowhere. You think you don't have a stake in Hartford's success. Everybody's got a stake in Hartford's success. And if Hartford fails, everybody in the state of Connecticut fails. And so we had to build those relationships and make that case. We had to ask our big companies, you know, where the truth is most of the people who work in our big companies don't live in Hartford. But we had to say to them, you've got a stake in the city's health. We need you to be part of the solution. And they put $50 million on the table, you know, to help us get to stability. We asked our unions to step up in some pretty big ways. And I'm really grateful to all of our city employees for stepping up. You know, they made some tough choices. They accepted some tough changes. And I wish we didn't have to do any of that because our employees work really, really hard. But we had to build those partnerships and do that work so that we could be in a place where we weren't in permanent crisis, always uncertain whether our city was going to pay its bills, never certain whether we were going to be able to work on actually growing and creating opportunity. And by doing that, you know, we're not out of the woods. We've got a lot of work yet left to do, but we have an opportunity now to build on a more solid foundation and start to grow.
And that's why you're running
that's,
again, right?
That's why I'm running again, and that's why, you know, I hope to be able to continue that work because I really believe this city can be a city that is vibrant and strong, but also a city where everybody can feel that they're part of that. And we've got a lot of work left to do, but I don't feel like slowing down anytime soon.
He's not slowing down, but we're now going to another part of the city to see how this continues as a conversation. See you in a bit. So we moved locations. Thank you so much. This means you spend a lot of time with me, so I am honored, Mayor. Let's talk about the development of Hartford, the dollars that it takes to develop a city, such a diverse city. A city that's loved by many, and a city that's misunderstood very much by many as well.
Yeah.
As mayor, you've seen a lot of good things happen. Tell us about some of those good things.
You know, it gets back to what we were talking about earlier, which is partnerships. You know, when a city doesn't have money and we don't have money, you've got to build those partnerships, and you've got to persuade people that there's a future to invest in and to lay out a vision. And so, you know, there's a lot of different things that we've been working on. We're standing right here in Colt Park.
This is amazing.
And it's a beautiful park. And, you know, right now, you know, it's early in the season, so there's not many people coming, but in a couple of weeks, this park will be filled every weekend with thousands of people. And you know, just from here, I think you can see a good example of the kinds of work that we've been trying to do. So down, right over there, you've got Dillon Stadium, right? A historic community asset that was just falling apart. It was ignored. It was deteriorating for years. And with partnership, without putting city money in, you know, we're able to get that rebuilt to house a professional soccer team, which gives another, you know, shot of energy and activity in the city,
So
but also to be there for a community use.
Saying without using our dollars, with collaboration with others?
This was built almost entirely with the partnership of, private investors in the state, the Hartford Foundation. We have a loan in there, but that will come back to us. So at the end of the day, we're going to get a historic community asset rebuilt without making the Hartford taxpayers pay the price. And that's just one example. But it was also really important. I think that's a good symbol because that's a perfect example of public-private partnership with the Hartford Foundation, the state, and private investors helping to make it happen. And home to a professional soccer team, which we should all be proud about, but also a place that is designed for community use and for our kids' teams, for our adult leagues to be able to play in there again and bring the Turkey Bowl, Turkey Day game back to Dillon Stadium. But it's not just that. Right next door to there you have the historic Colt Armory, which has also been falling apart for years. And now that's both residential and jobs coming back in. Here in Colt Park, with another partnership, federal, state, and local, we are able to put money together that's going to be fixing up all the fields that you can see behind us. So we've got millions of dollars that's going to be coming into this park. Again, state, federal, private, and public, that's coming in to this beautiful historic park that gets so much use by our community. And then not far from here, just behind Burr School, there's going to be a $20 million Boys and Girls Club that's being built
the Boys and Girls
right
Club.
in this neighborhood where it's really needed. There's a big gap in youth services here in the South End, and in particular, in this part of the city. We have Buckley High School right next door and Burr just down the road.
My father used to work at Buckley High School.
And getting that really quality after-school opportunity for kids right behind Burr School is a really important thing. So I think this illustrates what we're trying to do when we talk about community development. Yes, we want jobs and private investment and companies coming in like you see in the Colt building, but we also want to restore and build community assets that will strengthen and lift up and create opportunities for our community as a whole. And I think this area in Coltsville is a perfect opportunity. But it's not just here. If you look at Parkville, we've been active. I'm excited that later this summer or fall, the Parkville Market is going to open up, which is taking what's been an empty warehouse building and turning it into a place that's going to house and feature dozens of local food vendors, and a wide variety of cuisines and cultures represented there, right at the base of Bartholomew Avenue, where we're also working on doing some transit-oriented development and restoring some of those broken down old factory buildings. And there too, it's about building the partnerships that make that possible. If you look north to Albany Avenue and Blue Hills, you've got the Albany Avenue streetscape being done. You've got old, dilapidated public housing projects being rebuilt into quality, affordable housing. And then down at the other end of Park Street, right at Park Terrace near Pope Park, Mutual Housing is doing a really significant, high-quality, affordable housing development there. So we've tried hard to focus on development of all kinds in the downtown and in our neighborhoods, private and public, and most importantly, partnerships, so that we're striking this balance of getting the economic engine and the taxpayers in that we need to keep our city strong, but also focusing on those developments that are going to help make a difference to every resident in our community.
I like your level of excitement. I mean, you can't hide it, but let's be honest, that takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
You put in a lot of work. That doesn't end in 2 years or
Right.
3 years. That is a lifelong journey, because you have done so much work. You have built so many collaborations. I'm sure you get some resistance from people who say, those things are not possible. Things have been done that way forever.
Sure.
People are not motivated. Why would they want to invest in the city of Hartford? Look around, that kind of stuff. So what is the constant barrier that you go, I already know I'm going to face this, and I'm going to tell you what my city could really do?
Look, I think that ours is a city that is full of residents who are resilient, who never give up, who constantly overcome obstacles and move forward. But our city, as a city, I think had kind of lost confidence in itself and lost, faith that we had a direction that was strong. And it's hard to get partners to invest when there's no clear direction or path or momentum. And so a big part of what we're trying to do is change that perception of our city, both within our city and outside of our city, so that people can see that Hartford is a city that's on the move. And one of the things I always say is once you start making some progress and getting some momentum, it can move faster than you think it can, but you've got to stay the course. You got to keep it up, and you can't slow down or go back. You've got to make sure that you keep that progress moving forward, and that's what we're trying to focus on doing right now. And I think we're beginning.
You do a lot of work with local merchants. I mean,
yeah.
I've seen you dance and parade in a lot of festivals, but I've also
Not
seen
very
you
well.
No, it's not your dance. You did good. I've also seen you talk to small businesses like mine, and I have wishes and dreams of my own. Like, my production is all about removing barriers.
Right.
I want to demonstrate, like you just said, that we can do it.
Right.
That if we unite and collaborate, and not in the nothing is wrong, we
Right.
don't have to address anything.
No.
So we need to continue to do that. Tell me about the small merchants.
Sure. Well, one of the biggest obstacles that our small businesses in Hartford face is taxes. I mean, if we're going to be honest about the obstacles, that's one of the biggest obstacles. They pay an arm and a leg in taxes. And that's why when I came in, I said, I will not, under any circumstances, raise taxes, because our small businesses can't handle it. And our small businesses are the employers that employ local residents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of our big companies, they're great companies, but most of the people who work there don't live in Hartford.
Right.
And it's our small businesses that we need to be successful to create job opportunities in our city. And so the first thing was saying we're not going to keep asking them to pay more and more. We're gonna draw a line in the sand and say, you know, our small businesses have paid enough in taxes, and we are not going to solve our budget crisis by increasing taxes again on those small businesses that we depend on. And then we've tried to do other things too. You know, in Parkville a couple years ago, we did a micro loan program, micro grant program actually, where, you know, we had a number of small businesses, restaurants and other kinds that they had things they wanted to invest in. You know, they wanted to put a new hood over the stove in the kitchen or something like that, or do some facade work, but they didn't have the ability to do it. And so we used CDBG, that's Community Development Block Grant dollars, to give out those small grants that just make it possible to make a little bit of an investment and a difference. And then, you know, we right now have a program in partnership with a group that's out of Boston called the Institute for the Competitive Inner City, and they've got this program called Inner City Capital Connections. It's been run in a number of cities around the country, and it's been really successful in connecting small businesses to technical assistance, but also to some capital, some loans and financing that sometimes our small businesses struggle to get access to.
And the how-to.
That's right, and the how-to. So, you know, we built that partnership with the Hartford Foundation, with the Institute for the Competitive Inner City, and they are right now accepting applications. So I want to encourage every small business owner to apply for that and to reach out to my office for help in getting that application in, because that's a really important way to help get some of our local businesses some additional support.
What is a ride around the city for you? Do you ever have moments? I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little bit personal here, okay? So we're moving out of your office, and I've seen you do a lot of good work. You know I'm a fan and supporter of your work. We've worked really closely in very painful moments, and I've received the support. Don't always understand your world, and I feel comfortable with not. I leave the folks to play in their own sandbox. But that said, when you drive around the city and you have your moment, right? You're with your kids or your wife, or what are the spots that you go, yeah, look at that? Obviously,
look, I do a lot of driving around the city. I do a lot of walking around the city. You know, I try even when it's not election time, I just go out knocking on doors because I like to hear from people directly. I like to be connected, you know, do those town halls every single month. I think we've done, I got to count, but I think we've done about 40 town halls now. When I'm driving around the city, it's always a mix of emotions, I'll be honest. It's always, one, a sense of pride because I love the city and it's a beautiful city, and we have so many neighborhoods with so many hidden gems. Whether you're talking about great little restaurants, or whether you're talking about, you know, beautiful historic homes, or whether you're talking about parks. I mean, our park system is magnificent, which is why we decided to, the first time in decades, make investments out of the Parks Trust Fund, like we're making here at Colt Park, to improve the fields. So I have those moments of real pride, and I get excited just driving around the city and seeing what we've got. And then, I have those moments where, you drive around and you know how big the challenges are and how real they are. But that's also motivating. It's to say we got a city that's got so strong, but we've got so much work to do, and to me that's motivating. I also, most of the time I'm driving around, I've got my 311 app, and anytime I see something that's wrong, I'll snap a picture of it and make sure that we're reporting it and trying to take care of it.
Now, you have probably seen, as a military person, some really difficult situations. You have seen less. You've seen folks that have much less than we can ever dream of. Yeah. And you have the opportunity here to expose some of that. You know what pain looks like. If you didn't live it physically, when you go and do a tour, you do live it physically. Am I correct?
Look, I have I've lived in India, I've lived in Afghanistan. I've seen people living in very, very difficult situations. And of course, there are a lot of folks in Hartford who are living in very difficult situations. But I think, what always strikes me, and again, what inspires me is just the resilience of so many people right here in Hartford to overcome those barriers. And I think our job as a government is to try to do our best to break those barriers down. That's what you try to do, and that's what we have to try to do. I'll give you an example.
And I don't mean to interrupt you. I speak about the uniform because there is a validation to this. So those men and women who are part of our armed forces and wear a uniform, we don't see their faces all the time, and we have all these privileges because you and others have decided to wear that uniform. So when I get this question all the time, and they say, well, Luke is Americano. How is he going to understand? I always go back to the military uniform. You've been protecting and serving people from all walks of life at times that crisis is at its worst. I can't even imagine. So that's where I go to. I go to that place that says he's already worn a uniform and had to protect and serve people he's never met. Here you get a chance to meet people.
You do. Look, I think one of the other things that is so important about the military is when you're in the military, it doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from, where you grew up, where you went to school. The only thing that matters is that you're part of a team and you've got a shared mission. That's what I loved about serving, but I think it's also a really important lesson. And in some ways, that's why I wish more people served. And I think we kind of, you look back to that generation after World War II when so many people had served together that broke down a lot of barriers and created a sense of common identity. But yeah, I think the beautiful thing about the military is that it's one team, one mission. All differences just don't or shouldn't matter, and most of the time they don't.
So are you hoping that we as a community are able to continue to do some of that?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a small city. This city of Hartford, we're 17 square miles. We're such a small city. We would be one little neighborhood in New York City, or any other big city in the country. The whole city would be one little neighborhood. And I think that's important to keep in mind because, when we talk about trying to make progress and move our city forward, sometimes I think folks fall into the habit of saying, oh, that's happening in some other neighborhood, so it doesn't matter to me. But, you can walk to almost any part of this city from almost any other. And progress in any neighborhood is important to move the city forward. But I think what's important is that we work together to try to lift up our entire city. And I think as we said before, we've got a lot of work to do, but we're starting to make some progress there. And the other thing is, when you talk about development and creating opportunity, it's not just buildings getting built. You have to focus on people. And I think some of the things that I'm most proud of, maybe, I much more than getting blighted factories fixed up and turned into housing, or getting development projects done. I'm proud that we opened up a re-entry center inside City Hall where folks
Tell folks what is that
so
mean?
We have now, if you go to the back of City Hall, you'll see a sign that says Hartford Reentry Welcome Center. And what that means is that anybody who's coming back home, coming to our community after having done time in prison and been incarcerated, has a place where they can go, where there are knowledgeable people ready to help them navigate what's a really difficult transition. And we have so many residents who live with that barrier of a criminal record, and that holds all of us back. That it's not just about a second chance for that individual, it's about their family, it's about their neighborhood, and it's about our city as a whole. So we worked again in partnership with the Hartford Foundation, with Community Partners in Action, with the Greater Hartford Reentry Council to set up a center that could be a one-stop shop where people could come in and help get connected to some resources and navigate their way through that difficult journey. And it's not a solution to everything. There's no way you can erase the barriers that come with a criminal record completely. But
or the pain.
or the pain. But at least there's some place now where somebody can go. And we even built a partnership with the Department of Corrections so that instead of just dropping folks on the street corner, now we coordinate with them, we plan a time, and residents or members of our community are dropped back at a place where there are people ready to welcome them back and begin helping them with that transition back to community. And then another thing that I'm really proud of is something that I said we would focus on doing when before I got elected, which is building a youth service corps. I talked to so many people who dedicate their life to working with our young people in Hartford, and time after time, what I would hear is, we don't have a carrot to offer to our kids. If we've got a talented kid who's made some mistakes, or maybe they're just disengaged or disconnected, maybe they've had some interaction with the criminal justice system, or maybe they have just stopped going to school as much as they should, or maybe they're done with school but they don't have a path. We didn't have something that we could say, hey, here's a way to earn some money and also get on a different path. So we built a youth service corps, all with private money. We went out to foundations and companies and we talked to them about the vision of this, and they invested in it. And we've raised more than $2 million a year, and it's allowed us to build a youth service corps that puts hundreds of young people in our city to work year-round, part-time, doing things in the community that strengthen their community, but also give them the opportunity to earn a paycheck, opportunity to get some work experience, and connection to coaching and mentorship that hopefully lets them get on a different path. And I love spending time with our Youth Service Corps members because we do have some incredible young people who just need that opportunity to get on the right path, and Youth Service Corps has been a really important part of doing that. I'd love to grow it. I'd love to build it. I try to talk with potential funders and foundations, because I think this is a model for what we should be doing as a country, which is we need to create those opportunities for our young people to get the work experience and to begin building that foundation. And our Youth Service Corps is just one example of what we're trying to do, but it's something I'm really proud that we were able to put together. Again, the city had no money to build those partnerships, raise the private dollars, and almost all of that money goes into the pockets of the young people who are doing the work. And what's great is that the kind of work that our Youth Service Corps members are doing is everything from building benches for parks to shoveling snow for seniors in the winter. And that, I think, creates a stronger sense of community. It creates a bigger sense of investment and commitment in a community. And I love having kids working for their elders and their seniors in the neighborhood.
Right?
That's how it should be, and it strengthens us as a city as a whole. At the same time, it puts a little money in their pocket and hopefully gives them that work experience that will help them get on the path to long-term employment. The other thing that we're trying to do is build those partnerships with our companies that are here and community colleges like Capital Community College, so that our residents get on the path to careers in the companies that are located here. Just last week, I was at the graduation of the first class of apprentices at the Hartford Financial Services Group. And that was really special because that was actually my first job out of law school, was working at the Hartford.
Really?
So to be back there and to see our first class of apprentices graduating with full-time jobs, and not just jobs, but career paths in a Hartford company in their own community, is a beautiful thing. And we want to do a lot more of that, and we have to do a lot more of that.
So we've talked about it a lot. You know what I do, but obviously I'm a woman. right? So I always have like, where are the female facts? And I'm also someone who suffers of a disability. All the things that you've talked about, the economic development, will affect us as women,
Yeah.
the equality piece. It will also affect our mental health, not only to women, men. And we see this a lot where families who need a place to stay, who are hungry, who are tired, who are scared, uninformed,
Right.
their mental health gets really
Right.
decayed. And wouldn't anybody?
Yeah.
How do you see the city, with everything you've provided and continue to work on, where do you see our mental health journey going up? I mean, moving towards a place where we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Because when I come out, it's like coming out every time people go, what?
You know, to me, it's really important to talk just as much about our challenges as about our progress and our triumphs, because it's only if you talk about challenges that you can actually address them and fix them. And if I had to name one of the biggest challenges we face, it's the huge gap in, between the need that's out there for mental health services and the services that are available. I was just last week talking with the head of one of our hospitals here about that gap and urging them and asking them to help bring some of their expertise and resources to the table, because that's one of the biggest needs. And when our kids are growing up exposed to violence, exposed to addiction, exposed to families that may have been broken apart by incarceration.
Saying,
and exactly,
do as you wish.
And you have an administration who is in some ways traumatizing people all the more by feeding this feeling, this atmosphere of fear and division. All of that trauma compounds, and all that trauma has a real impact. And if we want to create opportunities for our families and especially for our kids, we need to recognize the extent of that trauma, and we need to try to build the partnerships that are necessary to address that. One of the things that we tried to do and failed to do was get the Bloomberg Foundation to work with us on something called Action, which was alleviating childhood trauma in our neighborhoods.
How did we fail?
We went after a grant and we didn't get it, and we got far. We were a finalist, but we didn't get it. But you can't. Hey, you got it. Like I said, you got to talk about your failures as well as your successes. We tried hard, and we put in a good application. We were a finalist, but we didn't get it. But now what we're trying to do is take that application and see if there are other partners that will work with us. And that proposal was specifically about trauma that comes with being exposed to violence, and I hope that we'll be able to find some partners that will work with us to do that. In the meantime, we've done some smaller things like getting a juvenile specialist that's full-time at our police department that's able to work with young people directly and provide some of the services that they need. But as we've talked about before, the only way this really gets done is with partnerships, and that means partnerships of our big hospitals, partnerships of our small providers, partnerships of our like Charter Oak Health Center and others that do some great work. It's not that we have organizations doing some great work,
Absolutely.
but the size of the need is so big that there's so much more we need to do.
I know you've spent hours with me, but I have to ask you a couple of questions, because this is how I dream. If you had the magic wand, it was given to Mayor Luke Bronin, and then the magic wand that was given to just Luke, which would be your wishes? And would they match? So the mayor has a magic wand. Your desires for the city.
For the city.
And then you have this Luke.
Let me
wand.
say this: if I had a magic wand, that could do anything. I think our world right now has some pretty big problems, so I think the magic wand would probably be focused on the big global problems that we've got. And I think we're at a time in our country that's scary. Whether you're talking about Donald Trump or whether you're talking about climate change, there's some really big things that I think are threaten the future of all of our kids and all of our grandkids.
Would you focus on healing? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think that's probably one way to say it. I guess what I would focus on. in some sense, this is the big global issue, and it's also our local one. It's creating a sense of common identity that, despite our differences, that we're all in this together. Whether we're talking about, big stuff like climate change and getting countries to work together so that our kids and grandkids actually have a world to live in, or whether we're talking about the work that we have to do right here in Hartford, where, we are one small city, and if we come together and work as one community, we can go so much farther.
So in closing, you have experienced a lot as a mayor. You've had great success. You still have a lot of work to do, which is what I hear in your desire, and you're burning to say, I need more time to do more development. I need more time to create a space for communities to talk about their power. Because that's one of the conversations I like. It's you own this.
Yeah.
This is your city.
Yeah.
You are the face of the city, but you have tons and tons of other people doing the work, working with you, and sometimes not really understanding what your goal is.
Yeah.
Where are we going? If you won again, Mr. Luke Bronin.
Well, there was this local marketing agency last year that did this little, digital ad marketing campaign, and it was called, their tagline was "Make Hartford Yours," and it highlighted some of the small business owners or the artists or creators who were doing things in Hartford, and just showing how much is being done in Hartford, but trying to inspire people to make their own Hartford, make it yours, imagine what you want it to be, and then help make that happen. And to me, that's what will really transform our city. I just this morning was at the opening of a big makerspace. It's now the biggest makerspace in New England. What that means is it has all kinds of machines going from saws and precision lathes to 3D printers. So if you've got an idea, if you're a creator and you're an inventor and you've got an idea, but you don't have the money to buy those kinds of machines, you've got a place where you can go and make a prototype, test out your idea, build something, be part of the next industrial revolution. But I love that as a symbol of what we got to do with Hartford, because if we come together as a community, and if everybody in Hartford says, I'm going to make Hartford mine. If I want it to be different in some way, I'm going to work to make it different in that way. If we all do that, this city can't be stopped. We've got incredible talent, we've got incredible energy, we've got incredible persistence and resilience. And so if everybody takes that spirit that we're all a part of reimagining and reinventing and rebuilding Hartford, then I think the future is really bright.
Well, you heard the mayor of Hartford. What else can we do? This is a wonderful opportunity for me, as someone who tries to produce a program that really brings and inspires and brings hope and talks about the challenges, but also about potential solutions. Yeah. We here in Leyes Sin Barreras support your work. We've seen your brotherhood and sisterhood in your office. I wish nothing but the best for you and your family, and that the city is blessed with more of you.
Thank you, Lily.
Thank you, Mayor.
Great to see you. Thank you for all the work that you do.
Y nosotros aquí con el alcalde, ya escucharon, él tiene muchos deseos, muchas ganas de promover ya lo que ha hecho y continuar con lo que él comenzó, y también abrir nuevas puertas en colaboración con muchos. Dios me los bendiga, Dios me los acompañe, y díganme qué creen.